So, add a little bit of the context. Like, to the fraction, right? Because this is all... Like, I'm trying to explain in several videos what happens to your brain slowly and repeatedly over the course of an entire lifetime of conditioning. It's not really possible to give the full effect. So I gotta just try and summarize in ways that make it understandable for those who are in it, which makes it really fucking hard to see, and for those who have not experienced it, which makes it really hard to fucking see. So, see how this goes. Let's start with what sort of behaviours are used. So, there's this thing called weaponized incompetence. This is something we experience from our mother a lot. It basically does what it says on the tin. It's... You think of an example. Now, we have been affected by all of this, which means that giving examples is not going to be an academic exercise. It's going to be one of trauma processing, which means we have defenses and protections designed to keep us safe from it, a lot of which is dissociative amnesia. This is why grounding and finding examples without leaving our body and without leaving parts of us is going to be like a very challenging thing, which is kind of why this stuff works in the first place, because you get so dissociated and you lose your sense of self. And without that, it's like you become an empty vessel to be filled up with all of their shit. So, weaponized incompetence. It's basically where a parent or adult panics and acts very young, like a child, and their child, over time becoming parentified, takes on the role of parent or caregiver, realizing that the adult is not safe and cannot protect themselves, and instead stepping in to protect the adult. Now, of course, the adult is an adult, and they can protect themselves. They may make inappropriate and juvenile decisions, but weaponized incompetence is just that. It is a weaponized manipulation tactic designed to control our behavior. Let's say we're safe. Okay. I'm struggling to pull apart two different things. It's what's happening to me right now. So there's weaponized incompetence and there's an emotional contagion. Emotional contagion is the person basically transfers their emotions at a high intensity to you until you are overwhelmed by and filled with their emotion. It overtakes your own, and then you have to act on their behalf because you're just like, fuck, I need to do something. It strongly motivates you into action on their behalf. So, like, the example that I'm going to use is a joint mix, because as far as I know, every example I'm thinking of uses kind of both at the same time. Emotional contagion and weaponized incompetence kind of comes as like a package deal in the memories that have come up in the last few minutes as I've been thinking it over. So there was this time where we had a bill that we shouldn't have had to pay, as far as I fucking know. Because, you know, my trust in my family has been pretty fucking shaken. But as far as I know, the electric company charged us a fuck ton of money when no one was currently living in the house. It was before we'd moved in. So there was no way that that could really be what we owed. Now, our mum wanted to fight this. I do stand by that. I think that I would be a fan of always disputing things that are unjust. Shocking, right? So she began this process where she looked into how to legally fight it. There was a support group she found that would run you through the basic process of writing and sending letters legally designed to make them stop. Very complex. Very, very complex procedure. Now, she started doing this, but then almost immediately after starting it, started going through this emotional contagion, weaponized incompetence type thing, where she would tell me how much trouble we were in and how much like worrying eviction. Look at all these eviction notices, and my word, I'm not capable. I'm just not doing it. I'm just not functioning well right now. I'm just not functioning well right now, and I just can't do it right now. And yeah, I know. Sorry, Brown. It's okay. It would amp like that, and you get like adrenalized with it. You get overtaken with it, especially after again the context of having a lifetime of being removed from your body and taught to self-abandon, which means abandoning the parts of us that feel what we're feeling and can prioritize our needs. So I can't feel my needs at this point. The parts of me getting filled up with her needs and her fear and her emotions have no connection to the parts of us that have connection to our thoughts, needs, and emotions. So then you get filled with all of this and you are freaking the fuck out and you just like, okay, oh God, you need to do something about it. But it's this really scary, really intense legal procedure. So I couldn't, you feel prompted to act and you feel guilty and you are guilted for not offering to help. But we were really fucking ill. Really fucking ill. Physically, as the suppressed trauma and the somatic expression of it, as well as mentally. So we could not. And eventually she moved more from emotional contagion because it was supposed to prompt me to offer to help, and it didn't. And because we couldn't, so we would just be like, oh fuck, I just don't know how to deal with this. So then it became more weaponized incompetence, and it would be more like, I just can't cope, I'm just not coping, we're going to have bailiffs round, we're going to have all this stuff, we're going to lose all this stuff, can you just do it for me, you need to do it for me, I can't do it. That's weaponized incompetence with emotional contagion. And we felt like we had no choice because otherwise we would like get evicted and shit. So we were like, oh fuck, you can't do it, the world is falling down around me. Bearing in mind this has happened to us our whole lives, so at this point we're well versed in how to respond, because the history of conditioning means that, again, entrenched pathways, valley. So we had to do this really long, complex, well out of our depth legal procedure that kicked the ever-loving shit out of us for months on end. It was so stressful. It was awful. And for the record, we did do it, and we did beat them, and they did desist. But very proud of us. Fucking furious at the adults around us because that was so inappropriate. So that's emotional contagion and weaponized incompetence as one example. There are other ways it can be done and other examples. Like one I gave to our mum when explaining it to her was like, what did I go with? Emotional contagion. Like, do you remember in the car the other day when you were like, oh my God, the sat nav is really freaking me out. It's not doing it right. It's not doing it right. It's not doing it right. And you just freak out until like, oh fuck, okay, I'll use ours. Like, that's emotional contagion. It's not a healthy way to communicate. It's working under the assumption and the expectation of our behavior without directly, clearly communicating your needs. We're not going to respond to this anymore. This is our boundary. We are just not going to act when you do this. Instead, what you can do is you can say, shit, I'm getting really freaked out. My sat nav is confusing me. Could you please use yours and help me map? And we'll go, yes, of course we can. Now, even after this communication with her clearly expressing what the problem was, what our needs were, what our boundaries were, she still continued to use emotional contagion for different things. This is a massive fucking red flag, because I know we've been clear about what's damaging us. I know we've been clear about the effect it has. I know we've been clear about what our boundaries and needs are, and it's still happening. So this comes under, the wide fucking bracket of why we had to go no contact. It's one tiny little fragment of a fucking thing. I think this is good for a snippet. That's one tactic out of God knows how fucking many we know about, and God knows how fucking many we don't have the language for yet.